Cyhawk in the summer just kind of rolls off the tongue. So we are going to give it a go as we typically do each and every off season, bringing in the Cyclone perspective today. And apropos, I guess, because Matt Campbell and company spoke at Big 12 Media Days today, as the Media Days run has started with the Big 12 leading off. Welcome into Hawkeyes Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Corey Brad and myself coming your way each and every Tuesday at 4:30 Central Time. Corey, of course, you can catch him on From the Hawkeye of the Storm each and every day, covering Hawkeye athletics. Corey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man, but that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And I knew they started early, but why are we doing Big 12 Media Days the week of July 6th? I mean, it's just nuts. We're literally 2 months from the season. We're already doing I think Big 10 Media Days is sort of ridiculous, but I get it because you got to get it in before camp starts. And then you got your Iowa Media Days, Institution Media Days, all that. So anyways, great. I'm doing good. Hot here in central Iowa. I know I've sort of been MIA on the channel and just everywhere, but I'll be kind of regrouping this week, and we'll be kind of off the mini hiatus that I've been on here of late. So yeah, we're going to start counting down the days now.
Well, I can't say I remember what happened last week, whether I backed out of that or you backed out of it.
That was you. I'm going to put the blame on you because it's been me before. I ain't taking I'm not taking the one this time.
There were some errands to be run. Yes. It was kind of a vacation pleasure decision, but also errands to be run as well. A little bit of both there. So
has it been hot down in Florida over the early
so
July?
It's funny that the other day that I was on the phone with somebody from Ohio. They were complaining about the heat, and I checked at that moment. It was 81 here, and it was 91 there.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and we've had some pretty strong storms moving through. We haven't had the tornadic action in Iowa that we usually have. It's been in the other states all around Iowa. So good and bad. Obviously, really sad to see what's happening down in Texas, and wish everybody the best there. But yeah, I mean, it's warm, and we've had a few developments. We've had some good recruiting momentum, which you expect in the summertime in June, and so that's positive. And I know that some other sports have had some media availability here, and I just got an email here 2 days ago about credentials. So we are, when you start getting talk about Iowa Media Day and, filling out your information for that and for the press box in the fall, which of course I don't involve myself with just because of this show. We have the post-game show with Coach Patterson in the fall, so I'm not there each and every Saturday in the press box, but that we're getting closer. And hey, we got a special show coming up towards the end of the month. You and I were going to be on here a half hour early. I broke that news to somebody here over the weekend. Somebody was asking me about it privately, like, they wish that our shows were longer. Well, we're sort of going to be doing that very soon.
Yeah, so here in a few weeks, possibly the week of Big 10 Media Days, we'll just have to see how that plays out, whether I'm going to be actually out there and available. We'll see what the deal is, or maybe I'll just be here at home. But sometime in the next few weeks, we're going to move this Iowa show up a half hour to 5 Eastern, 4 Central, go for an hour on the Iowa show, and then turn right around and start a Big 10 live show with Corey and myself. And for as long as I can keep Corey around, we'll go from 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central. And, we'll have guests, calls, whatever we want to do with Big 10 football. So I'm looking forward to that.
And speaking of which, you sent me something, was it late last night, about some trendy picks? Was it Joel Klatt who had his preseason trendy? Was it someone else? Was it Klatt?
It was Klatt, and the topic was the 10 most likely teams that have yet to play in the college football playoff to reach their first.
And I guess the implication was maybe I need to read that graphic better, but the implication was who has the best chance this year, right? Yes. I don't know how you could foresee it after this year. So Illinois was on that list. Iowa was on that list. And there was another Big Ten team that was on the list. USC.
Couple more.
USC.
Our friends in Nebraska.
Nebraska
Uh,
was on the list, of course.
yes.
You got to put them on the list. I love how they're on that list every single year, Mark. Every year. And they could end up 2-10 and they were on the preseason list. It's ridiculous, but you never know. Dylan Raiola is going to be in year 2, so.
Well, when it comes to Iowa and USC in particular, they have been close to making playoff appearances.
That's right.
Illinois, not so much. That last year they were.
I think people are looking at what they bring back and then the
Sure,
schedule.
sure.
And I don't know what the data says. I'd be interested to know. And Steve Dace is a guy who loves data and numbers, and so do you. But I'd be interested to know what he has to say on this. But like, what every year we make our predictions, and maybe less now slanted on schedule, simply as far as record predictions, because you had West versus East before, and one division was so much weaker than the other. But I do wonder, if you looked back at records and results, if how much of our predictions that were based on scheduling and returning production panned out. I would guess that returning production is probably a better indicator than schedule. That's my guess. Especially with the new format, which is we have a limited sample size. But I do think people are looking at the other teams just have a more difficult schedule than Illinois. Illinois is coming off a strong year where they surprised some people. They're bringing their quarterback back. They're bringing, a lot of pieces back, both sides of the ball, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And then their schedule is just more favorable. Nobody's going to have it easy, but I think a lot of people are looking at, if you're picking Illinois preseason, you're probably expecting them to go 10-2 or 9-3. I don't think 9-3 gets it in with that schedule. I really don't. I actually think I might rather a more difficult schedule like an Iowa schedule, because maybe that gives you an opportunity to go 9-3 and still get in. We've had this discussion before, but I wouldn't be shocked if Illinois went 9-3. I don't know that would be enough to get the Illini in, though.
I posted an Illinois preview the other day, and I don't know where my notes are, but anyway, check it out, folks. I went on a deep dive on Illinois football for about 10 minutes, and made my prediction, which is not quite as favorable as a lot of people out there on Illinois. But
I'll tell you what,
I would like to see it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Mark. We went through this Iowa schedule here. We've done it multiple times. We always do. We went through the Iowa schedule during the offseason and basically said, your boy Levi just showed up. Basically, we said, so, what games could we see Iowa win? What games could we see Iowa lose? And if I was to do that with Illinois, man, like, it's even more clear cut when I look at the Illini schedule that I could see them winning every game on the schedule. Now, the most difficult is Ohio State, but it's at home. Their road games are at Wisconsin, at Washington, at Indiana, at Purdue, and at Duke. They may win all of those. In all seriousness, they may win all of those, with the exception maybe being, they could lose some of these. They probably lose everyone but Purdue. Probably everyone but Purdue. I think Indiana's probably going to take a step back. I know some people don't agree with that. I think you think Indiana's going to be pretty good again. But yeah, that's a real favorable schedule. Ohio State is on the home slate. USC's on the home slate. Rutgers, Maryland, and Northwestern.
So I'm not hearing no Oregon, no Michigan, no Iowa,
and no Penn State. No Penn State. This is like an old Big Ten West schedule, Mark. I can't believe I'm saying. It's really not. I shouldn't say that, because they still do play. There were times with Iowa where, and Wisconsin, it wasn't just Iowa. Iowa wasn't making these schedules, but there were times when Iowa not only didn't play the best teams in the East, but they got Wisconsin at home when Wisconsin was decent. They got Northwestern at home. Sometimes Northwestern on the road was the most difficult game on the schedule. You could argue that in 2015 when they went 12-0, that was the most difficult game on paper on the schedule. That and the game at Wisconsin. So, yeah, they still get USC and Ohio State and Indiana, but I think there's question marks about some of those other opponents.
So again, we're going to feature Cy-Hawk. We got Levi Stevenson showing up here from SB Nation's Wide Right Natty Light. And if we get a chance in our conversation, I'm actually going to go to an article that was posted by The Athletic this week where they ranked the 100 greatest rivalries in college football. And I had issues with this thing all over the place. I'll find Iowa State, but that was brought to my attention and brought to mind when you said Iowa, Wisconsin. they had that rivalry ranked very high. I was surprised at
Who
how
is this?
high.
Who is this that made the
The Athletic.
The Athletic? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find it.
No offense. I some of these rankings, I understand that they create clicks and interactions, but some of the rankings that I've seen from, and some of it hasn't been from the Athletic, some of it's been EA Sports and their college football rankings, and then I see these podcasters like Joel Klatt and RJ Young and these different people. See, Mark Rogers Mark Rogers needs to have a regular. You had it for a while. You had your minions going through and creating all these rankings and then posting them on. What happened?
We'll get to it.
I enjoyed those.
We're working behind the scenes.
All right.
To get things ironed out and working on all cylinders. But for right now, we will have to settle for you and Levi going at each other for the next 60. So we got Levi showing up. And of course, it's tradition. The second week of the season, we've got Iowa State getting after each other. And this one's going to be at Kinnick, correct? No, they played at Kinnick, the last second field goal. All right. Okay. So they're going to be at Ames this year. Okay, very nice. And the Hawkeyes have a pretty substantial lead in the series, win most of the games. What, about 65, 70%, something in that range. But Iowa State last year, Iowa State 2 years prior to that. So 2 out of 3 for the Cyclones.
The road team has won every game since 2016, something like that. The road team's basically won for the last decade.
I better keep you guys separated. There we go.
2016.
Because 2015 was it?
That's you're incorrect on that. But go ahead.
So it's somewhere. It's like 9 out of 10 or something like that. The road team has won tons.
Because I was going to say Iowa beat Iowa State in Kinnick in 2018.
That would be I think that was the only home win.
That's fair. Yeah,
in the last decade, because I think the last time would have been because Cole Netton hit the game winner in Kinnick, and was it 14? I think 14, 15, something like that. But I mean, it's been road teams for 14, the last decade. Yeah.
And by the way, Iowa's owned Jack Trice. I mean, you could argue that Iowa State's owned Kinnick at least for the last over the last 2 matchups. I mean, again, but I will say this: those games are always close in Jack Trice, and historically, I think at least under Kirk, they're closer than the games at Kinnick, because there have been times where Iowa has, it's been a while, but there have been games. I think of 2016 when Iowa stomped Iowa State. 2011, I think
it was like 48-3 or something like that, something dumb.
Yeah, there was one in 20.
It was Campbell's first year.
2009 was that Arnaud's year.
Yeah, Arnaud would have been the.
Who was it? I saw somebody, Levi, the other day that published some Iowa State fan account or whatever it was. Somebody posted their top quarterbacks of all time at Iowa State or something like that, and I saw Austin Arnaud was on the list. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Funny. So actually, Austin Arnaud, he gets forgotten about a little bit, but people forget that people forget that he left Iowa State as one of as close to the all-time leading passer. I mean, I wouldn't put him in the top 5 probably, but he's in the top 10.
Yikes.
I mean,
I remember how he played against Iowa, and it was
sure. Well, I think
really
he gets associated with a really bad era of Iowa State football too. So it's
sure
that doesn't help him anyway. I mean, it goes Brock, Seneca, maybe, and probably not Rocco yet. Rocco's probably 4.
I was gonna say, then there's a big.
Then there's it gets muddy. Oh, Brett Meyer's probably 3. Brett Meyer's 3. And then I would say probably Rocco's 4. After that, it gets kind of muddy. Maybe Sage.
Is Seneca Wallace still running all the wing stops in Iowa?
He owns a few of them. I don't know if he. Yeah. I don't know.
He owns. I believe he owns one in Coralville. I had a conversation.
He owns one in Coralville. He owns one in Ames. One in Des Moines. He owns a handful of them. I'm not sure if he's actively doing anything with them, but I know he owns them.
I know when I talked to him. When was that I talked to him, chatted with him? He told me that. Well, I don't want to quote him, but I distinctly remember something along the lines of, the one in Coralville. They hadn't really been promoting that he owned it. Right? I mean, why would you promote that?
Yeah.
So, but
you were talking about that Athletic article. I believe Scott Docterman wrote that, which Scott Docterman is a very highly respected Iowa writer, actually.
Yeah, I know Scott.
Scott's a good dude. Scott's good people. So yeah, I guess I haven't gotten a chance to look at this, but I was curious where he put Cyhawk and what would be ahead of it.
There you go, number 32. Minnesota, Iowa at 34. So he considers those very comparable.
What's ahead of Cyhawk? I'm just kind of curious.
Okay, so here we go.
Georgia
That one,
Thursday.
Apple
right.
Cup, sure, fine. Stanford, Cal. Okay.
Stanford
I
Cal?
actually thought that should have been higher.
Now the Holy War, that should be
Yes,
higher.
should
The
have been
Holy War
higher.
should be way higher.
Pitt, West
Oregon
Virginia.
State,
Pitt, West Virginia ought
should
to be
way
higher.
Should be
right?
way higher. Yeah.
Yes,
Bedlam should be higher.
although they don't play anymore now.
Yeah, that's a bummer. That's not their fault though. Well, it's Oklahoma's fault. It's not Oklahoma State's fault.
This is what I was surprised. I was mentioning this to Corey before you came on. I was surprised Iowa was
that feels high.
That high.
Because there's not a trophy for that game, right?
Yeah, there's a trophy for it. By the way, does Harvard Yale? Does Iowa State have any other rivals other than Iowa?
What do you like as far as like a trophy game? You mean?
Do they have any rivals besides Iowa? That's why. Is that a hard question?
Oh, Iowa State has a trophy game with Missouri, and they have Missouri.
But
How often do they play that?
Well, they don't play anymore now. They're not in the Big 12, but it went back to the 1800s. You gotta remember, Iowa State and Missouri were in the same conference for for a century.
Yeah, but you can't say that's a trophy game right now.
There is a literal trophy. There is a literal trophy. It's called the Telephone Trophy. It exists. It's currently in Columbia, Missouri.
Hey, it's one of those circle dials, Mark. The telephone.
It literally is. It is a rotary phone. Do you want
a rotary?
So you want actually? There's a really interesting story because it was back in the. I want to say it was back in the 60s. They were playing a game. It was in Columbia, I want to say. And during the game, the two teams, whoever had set up the phones back then had somehow accidentally crossed wires, and the teams figured out that they could hear each other on the sidelines when they were making calls up to the booth. So from there, it was called the Telephone Trophy, and it's been an official trophy game. For
I'm
Iowa
asking
State.
you, do they play any rivals besides Iowa?
Kansas State.
Kansas State's a rival?
They're on the list.
It's called Farmageddon. It's got a name.
When did that get dubbed?
I mean, it's unofficial, but it's I mean, like that's what everybody calls it. I mean, like Iowa State Kansas State is well known to be a rivalry. Okay. It is actually the longest uninterrupted rivalry series in the country.
Mark, real quick, what's because I'm just taking jabs right now. Mark, if you had to rank these 4 rivalry games: Iowa State, Iowa Wisconsin, Iowa Minnesota, Iowa State Kansas State, which one would be dead last? I think we know the answer to that question, Levi. That's the only thing
Well, what are you ranking it based on?
On every criteria that's imaginable other than homerism.
Okay. I mean, that's a pretty nebulous.
I didn't even know that was I've heard Farmageddon because I remember watching the snow.
I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, you're not a Big 12 guy, but like
I know every other rivalry on this list. Virtually every other rivalry on the list.
Okay. Iowa State Kansas State is well known to be a rivalry.
Where is it at on the list?
It's the longest uninterrupted series in college football. Unfortunately, that's going to be coming to an end in 2027 because college football expansion is stupid.
Well, Scott Doctorman says that Lafayette and Lehigh is a better rivalry, but go ahead.
I've actually heard of that. I've heard of that being a pretty intense one.
They have played the most number of games.
Yeah, they've played for a long time. Yeah. That's like it doesn't have to be big names to be an intense rivalry.
No, I agree with that. There's got to be some rivalries that are non-Division One. I guess this is just Division One.
There is right there. There's Farmageddon.
Okay.
Ahead of LSU, Florida. Look at that.
By the way, I think Alabama LSU is too high on the list, Mark. How is LSU Alabama ahead of USC UCLA? Like that's ridiculous.
I made the same exact statement.
But has anybody watched the USC UCLA game recently?
Well, we're talking about recent. Or this is recent. I mean,
last decade.
Well.
I mean, I'm literally asking that to see if anybody has been in the stands for that game.
Well, I guess attendance that's a specific line of criteria, but
that statement's a lot of hyperbole.
Oh, absolutely is. But I mean, if you look at like the crowd shots of the Rose Bowl and LA Coliseum the last decade, they're pretty not great. They're not great.
There's 75,000 people at that game.
Well, maybe that specific game, but
they're not, and they're not selling it out like Nebraska, right, Mark?
Yeah,
they're not.
They don't have.
Speaking of Nebraska, did you hear Scott Frost's comments at the Big 12 meeting today? He was basically, it's because someone asked him like, what did you learn from the Nebraska job? He's like, well, don't take jobs you didn't like. He's like, I didn't really want to go to Nebraska, and I was like, well, that feels like coping, but
he's back on the Scott Frost.
I was like, I'm not gonna like. I have heard that it was more Scott Frost than Nebraska was the problem. But
yes,
the idea that he didn't want to take a job in the Big Ten at one of the more historically prestigious places in the country where he won a national championship at, like,
I mean, he could have like a negative relationship with the university.
Sure,
that's certainly possible. Well, I mean, he could have had one kind of before that, so he could have been reluctant to. But
I think he just by how he carries himself, it's a very natural, organic thing for him to have a lot of negative relationships with a lot of people.
Oh, I would 100% agree with that. Like, I'm not shocked that it didn't work out there.
That's why it's so sad. I mean, I don't care about Nebraska, but that's why it's so sad from a Nebraska perspective that it didn't work out, because from a holistic standpoint, you hate to see a relationship like that of a guy who was perceived to be the promised son. That's why it's such a risky play, right?
Yeah.
It's like dating a coworker.
Yeah, I mean, hiring alumni is tricky because they can be too close to everything that's going on, and then it's a hard breakup and all that. So it's
let me give you a better. It's like dating a good friend. It's like dating your best friend, Mark. You better hope that works out, because you're putting your friendship on the line completely when you jump over that.
I made it a point very young in life never to have friends as girls. I have no female friends. They don't exist. They're the female side of the gender.
Wait.
They are created for one thing, and therefore that's how they exist.
Different podcast.
Time out, Mark. What about Cheryl? What about Minnie? What about Leanne? I can keep going. I know all your.
But once you're married, people. Platonic. Once you're married, it's a lot. It's a lot. I feel like it changes the dynamic a little bit. But
okay, all right.
Anyways,
yeah, absolutely. Oh,
college football.
Yeah, it should. Go ahead, Mark. What are we doing here? Are we going position by position? Are we going to do that today? I hope we don't. It's too early for that.
Is it too early? Because
we haven't had any position battles going on, so
it's pretty.
Phil Steele has some rankings out here. I want to get some impressions from both of you on where he
Phil Steele can rank him week in two.
Sure.
These two schools nationally. Okay, quarterback. Iowa State 16, Iowa 40.
Well, I do. This is a fascinating one, because the bottom line is, and I don't know that it's going to happen, right? I don't know that's going to happen, Levi. But if Mark Gronowski pans out, he could be better than Brecht. I don't know that he will. I have no idea. Also, the scheme,
he's a big unknown because he's coming from FCS, so that's tough.
I know. I'm not denying that. The scheme is also at play here, so like numbers are probably going to hamper him, even if he is quote unquote better. But I don't know who the better option is right now. I don't think it's obvious. Slam dunk.
I think it's pretty obvious.
You don't know that. What you just. Well, I
know one quarterback has two full seasons of being a good quarterback in a power conference, and I know that Iowa has one FCS quarterback. Tell me which one you would take.
Which one is the safer option? Brecht. Yes, I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is, are you telling me there's not a chance that Gronowski's better? You think there's no chance that Gronowski ends up being better?
I think Gronowski can be better for Iowa than Rocco.
No, that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm asking.
But that's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you within the respective systems, if you swapped them today,
right,
Gronowski would probably be better in Iowa State system than he would be in Iowa.
So let me assume. Okay, well, I'm not talking about system. We're talking about position, player versus player, same position. Scheme aside,
if you're telling me comparing
the
two guys, I'm not sure where you could find a place where Gronowski is better or a better option.
Okay, let's just theoretical for that, because I can't prove you wrong, and you really can't necessarily prove me wrong. You can give me anecdotes and reasons why you believe what you believe, but what I'm asking you is, if Rocco Becht transferred over to South Dakota State or to North Dakota State, would he win the equivalent of the Heisman? Would he win in that? I mean, because that's something that he does. Like, that's whether you want to downplay it because it's FCS or not, and I understand that it is FCS.
He still did.
That's a major accomplishment.
It is,
and there have been guys. Cam Ward's a perfect example, and had he not sat out the second half of that game against your boys, you probably know what would have happened. But the bottom line is, guys do jump up a level, and it does resonate. It does carry over. So I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying it does happen.
I think the difference, though, is that in relation, relative to like their level, South Dakota State had better pass catchers than Iowa does and a better scheme.
Again, I'm not talking about what the numbers will look like. I'm talking about who the better player is. I'm not talking about what they have around them. That wasn't the question.
But what I'm saying though, it's important because how good a quarterback is very dependent on the offensive line, who they have to catch the ball. If we're talking about just raw ass arm talent, then I have no idea. I mean, I guess we have to see.
That's what I'm saying.
If you're just talking about true like raw like arm talent and raw athleticism, then I don't know. I mean, whatever.
What I'm guessing Corey's getting at, and because I try to rank players in the same light. Let's take an obvious example. Tom Brady's the best quarterback in the NFL circa 10 years ago. If he suddenly got traded to the very worst offense in the NFL, he's still the same guy. And you still have to try to look through that if you're going to rank him as a quarterback.
Sure. I think right now, if you were building a team and you were picking one of these two guys, I think it would be silly to not take Rocco, given that he has an extended body of work to go on. I
don't know that I'd say
I understand your optimism because Gronowski is probably good enough to be the best Iowa quarterback since CJ Beathard probably. And so like
could be. Yeah.
He could be. Yeah, absolutely. I'm willing to admit that he like can be that good.
And I don't know by the way, I don't know who I would take Rocco and Beathard. I don't know. I mean, two different eras.
That's tough. Yeah, it's
tough. So
Beathard had such a small sample size. It's kind of
making my point. You're kind of making my point. What? Like if you say he's the best since CJ Beathard, and you don't know who you take.
I'm saying he's talented enough that
he could be. So that's why I'm saying
he's like got a huge bar to clear.
That's why I'm saying he could be better than Rocco Becht. I'm not saying he will be, but he could be.
Sure, yeah. And yes, I guess.
Hey, we agree on something. How about that?
The possibility exists he could be better than Rocco, but right now he is not.
Sounds like he. By the way, and I don't care anything about this, but I'm going to bring it up just to ruffle feathers. Sounds like he really impressed at the Manning Passing Academy. But I remember a couple of years ago.
Who was a counselor at the Manning Passing Academy? Mr. Rocco Becht.
Rocco Becht. Yeah, but I don't care about the Manning. Let me finish what I'm saying. I don't care about the Manning Passing Academy. I remember a couple of years ago when Spencer Petras, he just tore it up at the and they had this video of him throwing without a pass rush, throwing 50 yards down the. You remember this video? Yeah, that went viral and all the fans.
Well, there was one. I can't remember what channel it was, but someone put up a video that said like Petras next John Elway, and I've got that YouTube thumbnail saved in my phone because it's so funny.
So my point is, I don't care what he did at the Passing Academy. It was good to see him throw, because he did have the shoulder issue. So it was good to see him throw, and it looks like he's back to full strength. So that's positive. I'd take that away from that little video there. But I would probably Mark. I'm fine with giving Rocco Becht the nod there. I don't know that it's definite, but based on what we have and what we know, and I think there's still some question until we see him on the field. I'm going to question health because Iowa's had so many problems with quarterbacks staying healthy of late, including the last guy that transferred over. So that had a lot of expectations.
Fortunately for Gronowski, he's a lot more mobile than Cade is, so that helps him a little bit.
Yeah, he's a better athlete.
He's definitely more mobile for sure.
Yeah, he's a better athlete. I was watching tape of him again the other day, and he reminds me more and more. I remember, Mark, when we were talking about the potential of Iowa landing Beau Pribula, and I remember comparing him to Trace McSorley. Gronowski's got maybe not a Trace McSorley so much as maybe like a Sean Clifford, maybe not quite as quick as Sean Clifford, but I always thought McSorley was more, he's a smaller guy, first of all, than Sean was. But like, I think Sean was probably the better athlete. I could be wrong on that. I'd say the same thing about Gronowski. Better athlete than Cade. I don't know that he's a better athlete than Beau Pribula, but it doesn't matter at this point anyways. But I
don't think I was going to start running tons of read options with him or anything like that. But he's good enough to not be like an actual statue in the pocket.
I think you're going to see more. I think you're going to see more quarterback runs for sure because it's not his. By the way, this the other thing about.
You think they'll see the designed quarterback runs?
Yes, absolutely.
We haven't seen that from Iowa in a very long time.
They ran some last year without any. Keep in mind who'd they have last year at quarterback?
Was it the Northwestern kid?
Yeah, you had Sullivan, but every quarterback that set foot in the field got injured, got hurt, and we still saw.
We should run some design quarterback, maybe.
Well, but I'm saying Gronowski is not carrying a lower body injury into the season. He's carrying a shoulder injury that we hope is recovered.
Yeah.
But Cade McNamara's were lower leg. I think Sullivan's was his wrist.
Is Sullivan still on the roster? Is he the backup?
Tulane.
Okay.
He transferred to Tulane.
Who is Gronowski's backup? Just somebody. Yeah.
No, it's not. Well, it's like Iowa State's. You were just every year I had to hear about how great JJ Cole was, and now where's he at? Is he at Abilene Christian?
Appalachian State.
He's at App State. Well, good for him. But yeah, I don't know who the backup is. It might be Hank Brown. It could be Jackson. Do you know who that is?
No.
Okay, well, you don't follow SEC. Apparently, you don't follow SEC football because he did start a few games at Auburn. So, anyways, moving on. It could be Jackson Stratton, the transfer from Colorado State, who did start a game against Maryland last year. And who am I missing there, Mark? It could be Jeremy Hecklinski from Wake Forest, who is a very good athlete. They're stronger in that room than they have been in a long time, Levi. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to matter because depth is depth unless you get hurt, especially at that position. But they are
to preach to me about depth and injuries.
They are stronger at quarterback than they have been probably since at least before Brian. I mean, I'm even thinking, like, are they stronger collectively than the Beathard era? Yeah, I think they probably are. Now, Nate Stanley was the backup in 2016. It's a good backup, but I don't think they had anything behind him.
Right backups, didn't he?
John Winky?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just I may just be imagining that.
Who else was? Yeah, didn't really have any. No, I think they've got good depth there. But I'll give the nod to Iowa State there, Mark.
Phil Steele's running back rankings nationally have Iowa State at 27, Iowa at 50.
Ooh. So we go.
I would guess the thing there is after Kamari Moulton, who is the guy.
Well, they have actually. I don't even know that. I don't know that Kamari Moulton is the undisputed starter. I don't know that because you have Jazz Patterson. You ought to know that name because Jazz Patterson.
I know Jazz Patterson
made a big play that probably won them that game 2 years ago in Jack Trice. So Jazz Patterson's back. Kamari Moulton's back. Terrell Washington's going to play less as a wideout this year, and I think more exclusively at tailback. And then they have some young guys. Brevin Dahl's someone I was high on at a high school. I don't know what his status is. He dealt with some lower leg stuff senior year of high school and took last year to recover. I don't know who's going to emerge there. It may be a running back by committee. That seems low to me, Mark. And I don't know. Phil Steele's not a guy who I perceive to be living in the moment very often. But to lose Caleb Johnson, who, by the way, I don't know if you've heard this, Mark, but Aaron Rodgers has been super positive. He's made some pretty interesting statements about Caleb Johnson already, which could be just fluff, but I don't have a ton of expectations for Caleb in the league, but I digress. As far as this battle is concerned,
Seahawk, right?
Steeler.
Oh, Steeler. Why did I think he was a Seahawk? Oh, I don't know. Whatever.
No, he's playing with Rodgers.
So moving to wide receiver.
Wait, hold on. Are we agreeable, Levi?
I'm sorry.
I think it's fair to say Iowa State's. I'd give them the nod again.
Anson and Sama's a really, really good 1-2 punch. Yeah.
Yeah, I like those guys. Just give a little.
One guy
bit
to
more.
keep an eye on. Matt Campbell actually name checked him at the press conference today. True freshman River Peppers, awesome player.
Okay.
I don't know if he'll play against inside, but
that's a good name.
It is. It's actually spelled Ryver too. River Peppers.
Okay.
It's a cool name. But I don't know if we'll see him early in the season or not, but chance he could play against Iowa. River Peppers, fun name.
I think Iowa could have a really good running back year again. It's just going to be a matter of I think it's going to look different. Can't imagine one of those guys becomes the next Caleb Johnson. First of all, physically, none of them are Caleb Johnson. And I don't know if somebody has that next level skill. I think all of them have a chance to start.
Obviously, at wide receiver, Iowa State lost 2 excellent ones. And if this is not an Iowa thing, I don't know what is. According to Phil Steele, Iowa State's at 60 and Iowa's nowhere to be found. They're not on the board. Nothing. He's got 76 ranked.
You can laugh at that, Levi.
Is Reese Vanderzee the guy? Like he's the dude?
No, I don't think he's the dude.
Who's the dude?
Well, their best receiver last year was not Reese Vanderzee. Their best receiver last year was Jacob Gill, who's back. He's a super senior, former Northwestern transfer. So I expect him to be the best option. And then they bring in Sam Phillips from Chattanooga, who is really productive. Again, FCS. We'll see if it works. We see examples of it working and not working at times. So I think those two are your 1 and 2. And then if you want a big X guy, it's going to be probably Vanderzee if he's healthy. Dayton Howard probably would be next. But again, depth, collective depth, I think they're as deep. And maybe I buy into some of the comments from Tim Lester as well. But we did see basically all the guys beneath them. We've seen those guys play in games. Jarrett Bowie, They got this kid from whose name escapes me. Oh God, KJ Parker. Man, I drawing a blank today. KJ Parker got some time last year. Yeah, they're probably, I'd say 7 or 8 deep at receiver. And what was it, 2 years ago, or well, not 2 years ago. What was the year that? It was 2 years ago when Iowa State beat Iowa 10-3 in Kinnick, right? 10-7 or 10-3.
So that was the Hunter Deckers year, 2022. Yeah,
2022. Okay, but I was going to say that year, I remember Iowa came into that game and their depth at receiver, I believe, was Arlen Bruce, Keegan Johnson, and then a bunch of walk-ons. So like it's like they don't have anybody from walk-on, and I know roster change, but nobody walk-on status that's even sniffing playing time.
So and then you say 7 to 8 deep at wide receiver, do you mean like 78 guys that they feel like comfortable having on the field type of thing?
Yes, okay. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know about top end talent. And by the way, Caden Weegen's another guy, return specialist of the year last year nationally.
I will tell you that he's fun to watch as a returner. He
is, and can he transition and actually be a real threat at receiver? I mean, if he's anything close to what he is as a returner, as a pass catcher, then he has to be on the field. And all of a sudden there's another guy you added the depth. So yeah, I think all those guys have a chance to play, Mark.
Moving to the offensive line, the wide receiver category includes
a wide receiver we're giving to Iowa State, I assume.
Sorry, we didn't.
I'll default to Iowa State, but Iowa State's losing a lot. They're losing 2 major, huge pieces. And I do think Iowa's room is on the rise. I would have to. I think
that the 60 is actually pretty underrating what Chase Soule and Xavier Townsend are. They're both exceptional players. Iowa State beat out Florida and Miami for Chase Soule, and Xavier Townsend was a big contributor at UCF before transferring up to Iowa State. They're basically from a play style and body type and athleticism perspective, they're basically a 1-to-1 replacement for Higgins and Knoll. Will they be as good as them? We'll have to see. But basically getting another powerful receiver with similar athleticism and skill to Jalen Knoll to immediately replace Jalen, and then Chase Soule, who is virtually the same player as Jaden Higgins, to replace him, feels that's good. They've got some guys. They've got some really, really interesting guys behind him. Brett Eskelson, Dominic Overby, Carson Brown's played a ton. I think people are down on Iowa State's receivers just because they saw 2 day 2 picks go to the NFL, and then they just don't know the guys behind them so much. And I think people are still used to the like, if Iowa State loses the guy to the NFL, then the guy right behind him's crap type of thing. I think people are still kind of used to that. That's not the case anymore. And I do think that by the time you get into mid season, if you were to re-rank the positions, Iowa State will be in the 30s or 20s or better type.
Are you? I mean, it doesn't sound like you probably know a ton about Iowa's depth at that position, but is there any level of concern in year 2 with a guy who has a history of just creating really good receiver rooms in Tim Lester? Is there any concern from your vantage point as an Iowa State guy?
Concern is probably not the right word. I mean, I will say that I will have more respect for the Iowa offense this year than I have in quite some time. As far as just we have to kind of pay attention to them potentially scoring points. But am I concerned? I don't know if that's the right word, but
one guy I failed to mention, Seth Anderson. Hair Trigger brings him up. Yeah, he's another guy who struggled to stay healthy, transferred in from the FCS a couple of years ago, and now year 2 in the Tim Lester system. Flash last year has good speed. So yeah, I mean, we can literally count. I know we kind of do this every year to a sense, but I've never done it to this extent. Bowie, Gill, Anderson, Howard, Vanderzee, and then Sam Phillips, Weegen. That's 7. And then if you want to add KJ Parker, and to me, he's the most unknown of all those guys, so I won't even add him. But that's 7 guys who have all seen either significant playing time or like Weegen. I mean, Weegen's seen significant playing time, but he's obviously excelled at a special teams position. And then Sam Phillips was really good at just a different level. So he's going to come in as a senior and be ready to go right away. So yeah, I'll give it to Iowa State. 3-0 there, Mark.
Well, to be fair to my buddy Phil Steele, in response to what Levi said, it appears from the write-up and the amount of information in this thing is crazy that he is fully aware of Chase Soule in terms of laying out all the games and the starts and 20 yards per catch at East Carolina. So he obviously stretches the field. Now, this is where according to Mr. Steele and others, that Iowa has the advantage in the trenches. So offensive line, Iowa State 30, Iowa 8.
Yeah. 8 seems really high. We're talking about offensive line?
Offensive line.
Like I said, I think both of them seem kind of high.
Well, I mean, I don't. Again, I'm always going to be skeptical about Iowa's offensive line because I think they're always overhyped. You and I both believe that. I don't know what Phil Steele does traditionally. I don't save these rankings every year, Mark. But they lose they lose really 3 big pieces, 2 of which got drafted in Colby and Richmond. Richmond was their left guard. Colby played a couple of different positions during his career. Tons of starts between those 2 guys. They do bring back Bo Stevens. They bring in a kid from the FCS who is probably going to start at left tackle, would be my guess. Jennings Dunker has been coming back off injury. Sounds like he's going to be fine for the start of fall camp. So they should be good at right tackle, even though I don't think Jennings Dunker is going to be a tackle at the next level. He's proven he can play tackle at this level. They're going to be really good at center and Logan Jones. And then I think Stevens stays healthy. He's got one of the guard spots. But they still have 2. I mean, I asked Kirk that question after spring ball. Like, how comfortable are you with your offensive line? He said, we got 2 positions that are up in the air. That doesn't, if you've got 2 of 5 still up in the air, I don't know how you put them top 10. To me, a top 10 offensive line nationally is you've got 5 guys that you just have a lot of confidence in. Now, maybe there aren't that many proven offensive lines left now with the portal and everything, Mark. Maybe that's the truth, but I would have a hard time. I'll take Iowa, not knowing as much as Levi does about his O-line, but I don't think they're top 10 preseason.
The impressive number here as well, or ranking, I should say, is that flipping over to The Athletic, they've got a listing of their top 25 players in the Big Ten. And you can imagine what schools dominate that list. But they have Dunker and Logan Jones both listed as 2 of the top 25 players. All positions in the Big Ten.
I don't know what to say about that.
That's crazy.
All I can say,
incorrect, but think about that ranking. That's only a little over like 1.5 players per team.
And by the way, James in the chat, I said Bryce Drew. I didn't name him, but yeah, he's the FCS kid, probably going to play at left tackle. And Seth Shepard brings up Cade Pieper. Cade Pieper has not really proven anything. He's played some, but he's not some cemented starter. So yeah, he might be that. It may be Trevor Lauk out of Roncalli High School over in Indy. And they have some other people, and it seems like they always have dark horses that emerge at some point. All I'll say is Mason Richmond was he a starter at left tackle for 3 or 4 years. Colby played as a true freshman. Those guys played their entire careers, and both were barely drafted. Now, it's not a massive accomplishment to get it drafted. I'm not taking anything away from them, but you think about the best offensive linemen that have played at Iowa. You know, they're being drafted in the top 2 to 3 rounds. These are guys that squeaked into the 7th round. Now, maybe Logan Jones is just going to take that big of a jump. Maybe Jennings Dunker is going to take that big of a jump. And I get we're projecting and ranking for this coming season, but I think there's a reason those guys came back. I mean, you can talk about how much Logan Jones loves Iowa, but I think there's a reason those guys came back. So maybe they'll end up being that. I think it seems like pundits typically overrate Iowa offensive linemen preseason. They do it every year.
2 of the top 25 players in the conference. And that's not like wide receiver.
Players overall.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying
I hope it's right.
Rarefied air.
And I guess maybe who is it that ranks? Is that Phil Steele?
That was The Athletic.
So I mean, I don't know what Phil Steele. I mean,
was Jeremiah Smith number 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, I don't know what Phil Steele, how he looks, how he goes through and does that because. I mean, he's a football savant, but I mean, is he an O-line expert? I don't know.
O-line people are O-line people, and then everybody else is everybody else.
Well, I've never claimed to know much about offensive line play.
That's my deal. Like when I do like film breakdowns and stuff like that, I can look at route patterns and coverages and run fits and all that. But if you're asking me to look at a right guard and look at his technique, call somebody else.
They do have lots of cooks in the kitchen, Mark. We've talked about that between George Barnett and Kirk Ferentz. They got plenty of help there, even with Brian no longer on staff.
So, Levi, what do you think about ISU's
so the nice thing is that Iowa State's pretty much got its 5 starters. It'll be James Neal, Dylan Barrett, Brendan Black, Trevor Burr, Tyler Miller going across the line. They've moved Brendan Black from right guard to center. That's almost certainly going to be your 5. I think they've all played very well at points in their careers. Dylan Barrett was playing really well, transfer from Wisconsin. He was playing very well last season before he got hurt. James Neal would have started at left tackle last season if Jalen Travis didn't come in and wasn't as good as he was. The thing here, though, is, as with Iowa State's offensive line has always been, is they've got to put it together. They've finally got the guys at all 5 positions where you feel really good about who they are. But offensive line has been by far the least consistent position group under Campbell, and which is I'm sure much to the frustration of Matt Campbell himself, because that's, he's very much in the same vein as a Kirk Ferentz type thing, where you're building the team from the inside out type of thing, or from the line of scrimmage out. And we'll see. Ryan Clanton has recruited the right guys. They took some steps forward last year, like actual steps forward, not the like spring ball where we think we're going to do good this year type of thing. Like they got better throughout last season. And we'll see. I just, maybe 30 is the right spot for Iowa State rankings wise. And I will default to Iowa being the better one, but like, I need to see it. I need to see Iowa State have a really, really great offensive line before I am ready to crown them as being like a top 20 unit or something like that.
Mark, I know we'll break down Iowa's positions too as we get closer to the season, but I'll give you a dark horse offensive lineman to watch for, and that's Michael Myslinski, who has basically spent his entire career off the field with injuries, and he was finally healthy for spring. So maybe I'm more of a sentimental thing, like I just want to see the guy succeed, kind of like Jeff Bowie last year, but he's entering his senior year. His career has flown by. He was a big win on the recruiting trail when they got him initially out of the state of Florida. So they need help at guard, and they're going to need depth regardless. No pun intended there. So let's see on Michael Myslinski. Be a good story.
Yeah, Steele says about Iowa State's offensive line this season, the Cyclones lose a 4th-team All-Big 12 center in Hufford, along with Princeton transfer left tackle Jalen Travis, who was drafted by the Colts in the 4th round. They return right tackle Miller, along with right guard Brendan Black, who moves to center, James Neal, and Dylan Barrett. Jim Boniface had 12 starts in 23. Overall, 105 starts return. We anticipate Iowa State having another strong offensive line. Iowa, by the way, 85 starts coming back.
In my opinion, and I think most Iowa State fans, the 2020 team had a very good offensive line. They were I think they were a finalist or a semifinalist for that offensive line of the year award, or whatever that, I can't remember what that one's called, but
Joe Moore Award.
Yeah. They were of course the Iowa guy would know that. But we were a finalist for that in 2020, but other than that, it's been such an inconsistent position group. I remain cautiously optimistic because of how much experience you have returning back, but we'll see. I will defer to Iowa on the offensive line.
Defensive line, Iowa State 54, Iowa 8.
Wow. I mean, that's really high again. I actually feel a little bit better about the top half of Iowa's depth at defensive line than I do about the offensive line, just because I think it's pretty clear who the starters are if they all stay healthy. You got Llewellyn, you got Herkett, you got Graves. And then, yeah, I mean, maybe you could argue the other defensive tackle spot is sort of up in the air, but I've heard really good things. They get Jonah Pace over from Central Michigan. You get Bryce Hawthorne in from South Dakota State, and then they have Jeremiah Pittman who can fill in there. So they probably have, 7 guys, I'd say right now, and that's typically what Phil wants, 7 or 8. And then, they've got other pieces that, hey, they're young. Drew Campbell, younger brother of a Campbell that plays for the Lions now, Jack Campbell.
Jack Campbell, yeah.
And they have other people, so I think they'll be fine there. I don't really know who I would say to watch for. Obviously, Yosei Epinesa is a trendy name, but he did not enroll early. Who was it the other day? I was like, why are you is
Yosei AJ's little brother?
Yeah, his little brother. And he was, 5-star, high 4, low 5-star. So, but he's a freshman and he didn't get here early. So, maybe he'll, he's going to be, it's going to take some time, but AJ did give them something as a freshman, as an edge rusher.
I would say its defensive line is which interesting because like the Dominic Orange might be the best individual player in either of these two groups, but the problem is that the ends are just they're not there. They brought in A couple different transfers that seem interesting, but the pass rush last year was really, really poor. Now, part of that was all of the linebackers getting hurt and not being able to supplement the pass rush out of the 3-3-5 with a linebacker. So that doesn't help. But I mean, the brass tacks is that the defensive line just was not good enough last year outside of J.R. Singleton and Dominique Orange. Now, Dominique Orange was amazing, but he can't do it by himself, unfortunately. This year, we'll see if Kenny Ziogu steps up or Samuel Same or, either of the transfers from Yale and Northern Iowa. It's we'll see. This is probably the weakest group on the roster, even if the nose tackle is maybe the best individual player on the roster.
So we're going to give that to Iowa, I'm assuming. And by the way, James, thank you. Brian Allen Jr. is another one who's played extensively, can line up just about anywhere on that defensive line, and he'll give them play as well.
Iowa taking a hit at linebacker after what they had last year. Iowa State 35, Iowa 50.
That's pretty close. In general, that's the closest ranking we've looked at so far.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's maybe the hardest one for me to, look forward at, just because I have a lot of trust in Seth Wallace, and I have heard really good things about the guys behind these guys, and they've done a good job turning over to the, when you lose a Jack Campbell or you lose a Seth Benson, but now you're losing a Jay Higgins and you're losing a Nick Jackson, who is nearly the all-time leader in tackles at the D1 level. So yeah, I mean, I like the group they have. If Carson Shire can stay healthy, I feel like we say that at every position, but yeah, if he stays healthy, he has a chance to be really, really good. Jaden Harrell, I expect to start. And then I guess Jackson Rexroth is a trendy name because he's going to play when they have their traditional 4-3 formation on the field. You're going to see, I think, Jackson Rexroth as that third linebacker. But if he's not on the field, then you're just looking at two linebackers and a DB. So I don't know what Iowa State brings back. I have a lot of faith in Seth Wallace, so that's probably a toss-up in my opinion.
I would give Iowa State the edge here on depth, on the basis. Well, unfortunately, so in 2024, the story of the Iowa State defense was the Iowa State linebackers being absolutely obliterated by injuries, down like 9 or 10 guys. I mean, to the point where at the UCF game, you had a walk-on true freshman starting at middle linebacker, a scholarship true freshman starting at at the Sam, and a redshirt sophomore starting at the Will, the grizzled veteran of the group. And they held their own. They definitely looked young last year, but the great part is you get everybody back. You literally did not lose a linebacker off the roster. So Iowa State is bringing back 10 linebackers with starting or near starting level experience, including Caleb Bacon, who in 2023 was an outstanding edge rusher, and is expected to once again be the best linebacker in the room, even though last year he broke his leg on the second play of the game against North Dakota, which sucks. But Iowa State's linebacker depth will be significant this season, and they've got some good top end talent as well.
Is Miles Medzazoon?
He's moved down. He's moved down to the defensive end spot.
Gotcha. Is he going to play?
Yeah. He'll be in the. He was in the pretty heavily in the rotation towards the end of the season, and he'll definitely play. I would guess he'll be one of the first two defensive ends on the field on either side.
Okay.
I don't know if he'll be a starter, but he'll be in that. Iowa State typically rotates pretty heavily a 6-man rotation on their 3-man front. So he'll be in. I would guess he'll be in the 6 or 8-man group of that. I would expect your starters to be Caleb Bacon, Caleb Berzina, and Will McLaughlin probably.
Any concern about injury?
Not right now.
Lingering.
Everybody is healthy from what I understand. Because last year you lose Caleb Bacon in the second game of the season. You didn't even get Will McLaughlin until the Utah game, like mid-November. But it was time. But you actually got Will McLaughlin back, and that was a lingering off-season back injury. But from what I understand, to my knowledge, everybody is as close to 100% as you can be 3 years into a college football career. So I would give Iowa State the edge on depth and just having so much returning experience. And then I really do think Caleb Bacon being on the field as an edge rusher, as a stand-up edge rusher, really changes the dynamic of the defense, who admittedly down the stretch really did struggle to stop the run, just when you have 4 true freshmen on the field in your front 6, that's tough. And getting all those guys back will help the safeties. They don't have to cheat up to help with the run, helps with the defensive ends. It makes everybody's job a lot easier when you don't have to run out a bunch of 18-year-olds playing linebacker in November in the Big 12.
Yeah, Bacon 60 tackles the year before, and then
He's
only 1 start and out.
Yeah,
last year. Secondary, Iowa State 15, Iowa 25.
Well, I tell you what, Iowa State's had a knack of having really good college players at that position. They have not produced a lot of great NFL talent. I think we can agree on that.
It's coming. TJ Tampa is slated to potentially be the Ravens starter at corner this coming season. Derek Porter was taken pretty high by the Raiders this year.
But there's a reason they bring all these guys. Who do they bring back this year at safety? They bring back
Jamison Patton, and then they Marcus Neal will be back, and I'm completely blanking on
who's the other DB that's
Jontez Williams is a corner, and he was phenomenal.
Yeah, so he'll be back.
Season.
So he'll be good. I mean, I saw somebody the other day had Xavier Wampa rated really high nationally. And I'm like, that guy got beat out last year at one point in the season. Like, until he proves it, I don't know.
I'm not trying to be the anti-Iowa guy, but I've not been impressed with Xavier Wampa.
No, he's been okay. He's definitely not looking.
He's
like
not the 5-star. I don't think he's the 5-star player.
So, yeah, I mean, between him and Cohen and Tringer, I think they're good. I don't know that they're going to be great. And then they do have
Jeremiah
questions.
Cooper. That's the other returning safety. Why did I forget Jeremiah Cooper?
Cooper. That was actually the one
I don't know why. I don't know why I couldn't
he's someone that I've named. I got a lot of respect for how he plays, but I don't think he's an NFL guy. He's just, I don't know if physically he can fit the bill.
He's a little undersized. I think if again, I'm gonna use this name because I think this is his blueprint for success in the NFL. I realize it's gonna sound like a little bit hyperbole, but as a safety, I think it would be wise of him to turn into what like Tyrann Mathieu was at LSU, to be a real ball hawk back there. Like, they're not going to run him out for punts and kicks, so he's not going to be that kind of guy. But as a safety, being back there and being a ball hawk and really trying to be a turnover machine, I think would be, and he was that kind of early in his career. Like, he was an all Big 12, he's a freshman All-American, then struggled a little bit his junior year. He just wasn't very good last year. But he's a first team all Big 12 caliber guy. He'll get drafted. It'll probably be like an early day 3 type thing just because of his size. But I think the NFL in general is starting to give smaller guys more of a chance in general, because they realize that, like, everybody being 6'4", 220 isn't necessarily.
But again, he's not going to have a better season than he had last year. So
yeah, he will.
Oh, okay.
I would hope he would. He was bad last year.
Okay,
not bad.
Maybe I'm thinking of 2 years ago. He was really good 2 years ago.
His freshman and sophomore season, he was very, very good. Junior year last year, he took a step back, and I think that's at least partially due to the linebacker situation where he's having to cheat up and help out with the run. I think he will return to being the very, very good safety we saw 2 years ago.
And Shaheed Barrows transfers in from South Dakota. Again, lower level, but Phil Parker's evaluating these kids. He was productive at South Dakota. I expect TJ Hall to start. Have heard nothing but good things about his maturation going into his senior year. Jalen Watson, really talented, great bloodlines. Everybody loves Zach Lutmer, trendy guy, fast. I'm trying to think of who am I missing in there. Deshaun Lee's played a lot. He's also been burned. So, but they have guys that plenty of experience. I think if TJ Hall takes that step, they basically got to figure out 2 spots, because the only sure thing last year was Jamari Harris. And now with him gone, you got to figure out 2 corners. So it's got to be 2 of your 3 that struggled last year. And so, I would guess it'll be TJ Hall and Deshaun Lee, but maybe it'll be a Jalen Watson. CJ Bell was highly touted kid coming out of high school. Big win for them on the East Coast. So maybe he ends up being a guy that moves forward. It seems like injuries are an issue at corner. We say that every year at Iowa, it seems like.
And then finally, last but not least, Iowa King of the Hill, special teams, number 1 in the country.
We did miss tight ends, by the way. We didn't grab tight ends.
He threw them in with the receivers.
Oh, I missed that, because I know Iowa State's tight end room is expected to be a huge part of the offense. Ben Bramer is a borderline All-American talent player when he's healthy. Healthy has been the issue, but Gabe Burkle,
a better tight end room than Iowa.
I don't know about better.
Deeper. I'll say deeper. I'll agree with that, because I think Iowa was actually not nearly as deep as they normally are. They're very young at tight end.
I think Iowa State's got the depth for sure. Like Iowa State will very comfortably run 12 or 13 personnel.
Yeah, I don't see Iowa doing much of any of 13 personnel.
I honestly, I hope they don't run a ton of 13 personnel, but they will do it. I think
you're going to see a lot less 12 personnel at Iowa. It was Zach Ortworth, Addison Estringa. Those, you're kind of your two guys that you know what you're getting. But I think Ortworth is probably the higher upside guy, but Estringa's had a ton of experience. As far as special teams is concerned, you could argue Iowa has the best kicker in the country. They have the best return specialist in the country. That goes for punts and kicks. And assuming Caden Weegan, I don't know that he's going to return punts this year. I know that's crazy to say. I would expect him to, but I don't know. I do wonder if he can emerge at receiver, how much wear and tear do you put on a kid like that? But if he's just that good and he's that much better than everybody else, then yeah, you got to play him at that position. And then punter, Reese Dakin was really good as a freshman. You expect him to get even better. He's like 27 years old now. He's got a huge leg. So, yeah. And then how about long snapper? They bring in Bryant Worrell. You want to talk about long snapping, Levi? They bring in Bryant Worrell out of Boston College.
Boston. Known long snapper factory, Boston College.
Yeah, that's right.
I would say, I mean, in general, I would say feels pretty comfortable with their special teams. They're not like elite, but Kyle Conradi was a good kicker last year. Obviously, he has a good leg, can hit some big kicks. Hit a couple of them last year. And then
and he also missed some big kicks last year. Go ahead.
He did, but none to lose a game.
Iowa State, but he also missed some big kicks, and he had a couple shankopotamuses last year. It was amazing.
True freshman.
We'll see.
He'll be good. Punting situations just fine. As far as returner goes, I would guess because Jalen Knoll returned kicks last year and punts. I would guess you'd probably see Xavier Townsend on at least one of those, and maybe River Peppers.
Why can't you guys ever figure out the punt game? Why is that?
Because what do you mean by figure out?
Well, it seems to me like they're like either Iowa State has to go punt by committee, or they haven't mishaps.
Had to do that since the Corey Dunn era.
Okay, they have mishaps they have issues with punt returning and punting and the punt team. It seems like there's mishaps.
Really. I mean, okay. Like they used to, but like within the last few years they've been pretty good. And actually, Iowa State's punt coverage unit last year. Iowa State's punt return unit last year was actually very good because Darian Porter was a monster on special teams and blocked a bunch of punts and kicks and shit like that. So they are not the Three Stooges punt return team of 2019. I mean, they've largely stabilized the punting and kick, the special teams unit. You know, they're not a top 5 unit like Iowa is or like Kansas State is, but they are good enough.
I know Mark says Iowa's the number one. Phil Steele says they're the number one unit in the country. So they're not top 5. They're number 1.
And Iowa State is not.
They're number 1. They're number 1, Levi.
Not all of us have to get our rocks off to punting, my guy. But Iowa State's punting, Iowa State special teams are good enough. They're not going to hurt them. And like in the case when you have like a guy like Darian Porter that blocked a kick in every single season he played, they can be a net positive too. Is Iowa State going to like make their living off of pinning teams on the 5-yard line like Iowa does? No, but they're gonna do what they need to do to win games. So they're no longer this massive net negative that they used to be.
When Phil Steele puts all this together, he's got Iowa as the 31st best team in the country and Iowa State at 28. So he has them extremely close. Now, when he factors in the schedule, Iowa State elevates to 21, meaning that he thinks the schedule is pretty favorable. Iowa drops to 33 because obviously thinks the schedule is more difficult.
Yeah, one plays in a Division II schedule and one plays in a D1 schedule. So, I mean, let's be honest. If we're just talking about strength of schedule. It's apples to oranges now. So
is it?
Is it? What do you mean? Is it? I mean, we can debate this another day, but I don't know what there's to debate.
Who does Iowa have for like good Big Ten opponents this year?
Oregon. They won. They made the playoff last year.
Okay, that's one.
Penn State.
Okay, that's 2.
They made the playoff last year. They get. Let's see. They get Wisconsin on the road. Indiana was in the playoff last year.
Yeah, but
no, not yet.
You can't start the show being like Indiana's going to take a step back and then be like, by the way, really awesome.
But they also made the playoff last year. That is,
yeah, so did SMU. But like,
okay, well, yeah, I mean,
okay. I mean,
not a. By the way,
and then who else? I mean, like
USC,
not automatic qualifying. The US is SMU. Yeah, never mind. Who else are we talking about here? You said
USC.
USC.
Because they have to play in Los Angeles, don't they?
Yes, and they play at Nebraska.
Oh, God. Kirk Ferentz is already rolling. It's already cringing. He's like his skin's already crawling at the idea.
He played out there last year.
I know, having to travel to Los Angeles to play a football game.
And they got killed there last year, Mark, by UCLA. So
Minnesota,
and Michigan State.
Can roll his eyes at Minnesota, but they're a good team.
Yeah, I mean, like if Minnesota played Iowa State this year, Minnesota would probably win. Like you laugh.
Actually, you know what would be the big headline coming out of Iowa State and Minnesota playing this year is watching Matt Campbell and PJ Fleck get into an actual fist fight at midfield. I don't know if you guys know this. They hate each other a whole lot.
I didn't know that.
They do not. And actually, well, it's funny because Iowa State and Minnesota as programs do not like each other and have a very long history of not liking each other. It's like deep. Like
we call that
hatred.
the I-35 rivalry, Mark.
No, they call that the one team kind of killed Jack Trice rivalry.
They don't play. Did they play in basketball?
No, it's a football thing. So don't need to go on a super long tangent, but Jack Trice Stadium, all that. He was killed at Minnesota. Anyways, Iowa State refused to play Minnesota for a long, long time. And they didn't play each other again until I want to say the 2009 Insight Bowl for like 90 years. And now Matt Campbell and PJ Fleck were both in the MAC at the same time. And not going to go into why, but Matt Campbell is no fan of PJ Fleck. And I like, I don't know if you guys, Corey, you probably haven't seen this one, but there's an old photo of the 2021 or 21 or 19 Baylor game when Matt Rule came up and Iowa State beat him. I think it was 2019. And after the game, Campbell and Rule are kind of like, they're doing the handshake, but they're like not even looking at each other. They're just kind of walking away because also don't get along great with Matt Rule, famously kind of a dick. But it'd be like, it's like that. But if Iowa State and Minnesota were to play, I'm fairly confident that Matt Campbell and PJ Fleck would choose to not interact with each other. They wouldn't shake hands.
It's funny because I think so. Kirk dislikes PJ too. There's 2 coaches in the Big Ten that Kirk doesn't like, and that's PJ Fleck and that's James Franklin. But I would
James Franklin. I don't really know about James Franklin the person, I guess.
Yeah, well, never mind. But I will say this as it relates to Matt Campbell. I think Kirk Ferentz has a lot of admiration for Matt Campbell. I think that goes both ways. I actually think they like each other a lot.
Absolutely goes both ways.
There's no bad blood.
I bet they go to the beach. They go to beach with each other in the offseason. I guarantee it. Like they're just in there, Kirk sipping a margarita on a beach in Cancun, and Matt Campbell's over there asking him dumb questions. It'd be great. That's probably what, honestly. But the Iowa State Minnesota thing's a funny thing because, like, yes, I think they've played once or twice maybe since 1927 or whatever it was, just because they kind of hate each other. It'd make for a great series. I would love that.
So it's one of those things where they hate each other, but nobody involved in the original decision to hate each other's around any longer. So
now we just do it on principle at this point. Yeah. It'd be like that. Like if we like did a home and home with Wisconsin, it would just be like a friendly fun, like, hey, well, let's all get drunk kind of rivalry. Kind of like we have with Oklahoma State. But it's with Minnesota, it would be all hate all the time.
Okay. I didn't know that.
I would honestly argue it would have more fervor than probably not Cyhawk, but Kansas, but like Farmageddon probably.
Okay. Catch Levi on his Iowa State show right here at the Voice of College Football. It's coming up very soon here. So it's 7 Central.
Yeah. Dino Chef in the comments is exactly right.
And then Levi, appreciate you always making this a stop in the off season, and we'll see you here in about 2 months.
Yeah, actually, yeah, about 2 months. Because it's funny because Corey was saying like Big 12 Media Days so early and stuff like that. My plane leaves for Ireland in 5.5 weeks, so it's not that far away.
I guess they play the early games, so
Yep, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too.
All right, Levi, it's such a good showcase.
Yeah, that's cool.
What's going on? It's great. Yeah,
thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, sir.
There it is, the annual showdown. All right, Corey, what's going on at your channel?
Back on the horse this week, Mark. We'll have content starting tomorrow, basically running through the rest of the week. And we'll have some live shows coming up. So it's basically, I won't say hammer back down, but we've had a bit of a hiatus, like I said earlier. And so people will have to flock back over to the channel. Lots of good content, interviews, all that kinds of stuff. And of course, we'll start previewing the season and come out with some rankings on our end. So should be good stuff. And Media Day at Iowa here in about a month.
Well, we got you here, folks, for about 10 seconds. There's an easy way to contribute, whether it be to Corey's channel or here at the Voice of College Football. You just grab the Amazon link, so you can do it right here in the description section, or go to Corey's channel and grab the link that he provides. It knows your account. It credits you exactly the same way. It treats you exactly the same way as it does with your own link. It's that smart. It knows what it's doing. Those people at Amazon are pretty smart, so it immediately transitions to your account. But you were able to contribute here at the Voice of College Football or at from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So it makes no difference to me. Either link, it's just a smart thing to do that help us and support these two efforts. All right, Corey, good to see you as always. We'll make it on back next Tuesday. Gear up for this one. And Minnie's in the chat. Guess what? Nebraska. We match up Nebraska and Iowa on the show next Tuesday. See you then.
Thanks, Mark.